श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्. I salute the compassionate abode of the Vedas, Smritis and Puranas, known as Shankara Bhagavat-pada, who makes the world auspicious. As we know, in the month of May, we have Acharya Shankara's birthday on 17th May. In that connection, Swami Ishadhyanananda Maharaj has asked me to give a talk on Acharya Shankara. I express my gratitude to him for giving me this opportunity of sharing my thoughts on Acharya Shankara. The topic that I have chosen to speak on is spiritual insights from Acharya Shankara. All of us know that Acharya Shankara's commentaries on the three canonical texts of Vedanta, namely Upanishad, Gita and Brahma Sutras, have commanded the respect and astonishment of the scholars, spiritual seekers and philosophers for centuries. He is no doubt one of the greatest philosophers that the world has ever seen. One of the post-Shankara scholars, Vachaspati Mishra, who himself was a versatile scholar on different philosophical schools of Indian philosophy, he wrote a gloss on Acharya Shankara's commentary on Vedanta Sutras. And the name of the gloss is Bhamati. In an introduction of Bhamati, Vachaspati Mishra offers his respect and reverence to Acharya Shankara through a few verses. There he says something about Acharya Shankara's commentary, which has since then been quoted again and again, and which succinctly describes Acharya Shankara's commentary, the uniqueness of Acharya Shankara's commentaries. He says, Natva Vishuddha Vijnanam Shankaram Karunanidhim Bhashyam Prasanna Gambhiram Tat Pranitam Vivajjate. So these two words, Prasanna Gambhira, that is Acharya Shankara's commentary. Prasanna means which is lucid, easy to read. It's a pleasure to read his commentaries because they are simple in structure, but at the same time they are gambhira, that is profound. They are replete with insights which we don't find anywhere else. Acharya Shankara, we all know, put the eternal religion, Sanatana Dharma, on the philosophical foundation of Vedanta and brought its disorganized house in order. Acharya Shankara, through his commentaries, through his other writings, his poems, his hymns, shows his brilliance. But his brilliance is that of a Brahmagyani, a sage, one with an enlightened consciousness. If someone goes to the source of all intelligence and remains in constant contact with the source of all intelligence, that person has a rare type of brilliance. That is what we see in Acharya Shankara. Without that spiritual illumination, Acharya Shankara could not bring out, could not show the mystical significance of Upanishads and Gita beyond the text's semantic layers or semantic crust. He could dig deeper into the texts and brought out for us, for all the spiritual seekers, the mystical meanings of those verses, of those mantras. Upanishad, Gita, these are outpourings of illumined seers, illumined teachers, and therefore only an illumined teacher can get the real significance of them. That is why we find without Acharya Shankara's commentary, we cannot really understand. We miss the spiritual significance of many verses, many mantras of Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita. Acharya Shankara's spiritual insights can be found in abundance in his other minor works like his primars or prakarana granthas such as Viveka Churamani, Upadesha Sahasri, then Aparakshanubhuti, so on and so forth. And also his hymns such as Dakshinamurti Stotram, then Bhaja Govindam, etc. But today we shall concern ourselves exclusively on his commentaries that we find in Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita. That is, we shall try to find out the spiritual insights that Shankaracharya give us through his commentaries of the Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita. And anyone who has read Acharya Shankara's commentaries have found that the commentaries are replete with spiritual insight. So we cannot take all of them, but today we shall see Acharya Shankara's spiritual insights on three things which are needed, which are essential for a spiritual seeker. And these three topics are three needs of a spiritual seeker. Three needs of a spiritual seeker. First need for a spiritual seeker is need for a teacher. According to Shankara, and for that matter, according to the Vedantic tradition, an aspirant for Brahmavidya or self-realization should go to a teacher, should resort to a teacher. The biographers of Shankara say that Shankara himself went and sought out a teacher on the bank of river Narmada, a place called Omkareshwar, and I have seen the cave in which Acharya Shankara got instructions from his teacher Govindapada. So that was in accordance with Vedantic tradition, ancient Vedantic tradition, that one has to get the instruction. One should be instructed by a qualified teacher in the path of spirituality. Mundaka Upanishad in second Mundaka, that is second chapter, or we would say second part of Mundaka, mantra 12. There we come across a mantra called Pariksha Lokan Karmachitan Brahmano Nirvedo Mayat Na Asti Akritah Kritena Tad Vigyanartham Sa Gurum Eva Adhigachet. Here, the meaning of this, someone who is a seeker of Atma Jnana, Brahma Jnana, or self-realization should go to a teacher. Having seen the limits of this world, the limits of ambitions and their fulfillment, having seen, experienced that they are not eternal, one seeker should go to a teacher. Here one word comes, Gurum Eva. So Eva means Guru only, none other. So in English translation it is translated like this: one should resort to a teacher alone. But that really does not do justice. Here, Gurum Eva, what is the significance of the term to Guru alone? Shankaracharya makes that clear in his commentary, and he makes an important observation or gives us an important spiritual insight about that. He says that the emphasis, the teacher alone, Gurum Eva, implies that an aspirant should not seek the knowledge of Brahman independently, even if they are versed in scripture. Even if they are scholar, they are versed in scripture, they should not seek the knowledge of Atman, knowledge of Brahman independently. Shastrogyopi satantrena brahmagyano अन्वेषणम न कुर्यात iti etat gurumeva iti avadharana phalam. So he says that this word gurumeva has been used only to say that Guru is a must for Brahma Jnana. We try to master everything through our do-it-yourself kit. It is alright for empirical things, but the highest truth cannot be, search for the highest truth cannot be a do-it-yourself manual, because what we are seeking is not objective something, which is what we are seeking is the subject, which is hidden behind many veils of false notions, wrong understanding, mistaken identities, and non-recognition. So a teacher who is established in that truth should be approached with humility and a spirit of service for receiving the necessary guidance. That is what we see in Bhagavad Gita too. In 4th chapter, Sri Krishna says, may you gain that knowledge by humility, by service, and by inquiry. Tad vidhi praniprateno pariprashneno sevaya. So, one question may be asked, why this guidance is necessary? Can't we do it ourselves? We have to remember one thing here, that through our eyes we can see many things outside, but if we want to see our own face, we need a mirror to see our own face. Similarly, to know our true nature, we need the help of Upanishads, the scripture. Upanishad is like a mirror, Shastra Darpana. Upanishad is the mirror through which we know about ourselves. So this Upanishad is the most important pramana or source of knowledge about knowing ourselves. But the problem is that if it is a mirror, we need to know how to hold the mirror properly. That is also very important. And sometimes if there is dust on the mirror won't show the right reflection. So the one who will show me how to hold the mirror properly is the teacher. And not only that, the dust in the form of doubts, wrong understanding of the Upanishads will be cleared by the teacher. So both Upanishads and the teacher both are necessary for Brahmavidva or Atmavidva. One may say that there are examples where we see that one got the knowledge without teacher. In that case, we have to remember those are exceptions only. And exceptions are exception. They are not general rules. So, there are two signs of a good teacher. That good teacher has knowledge. And number two, they can communicate the knowledge. Both of them are necessary for a good teacher. And another thing that one should consider about, we should rather background check about the teacher, that is how the teacher got the knowledge. The teacher got the knowledge from a lineage, from a living tradition, parampara, a lineage which has produced many saints. The teacher should belong to such a sampradaya, such a parampara, such a guru-disciple lineage. That is why Acharya Shankara again in Bhagavad Gita, 13th chapter, 2nd verse, in his commentary he says, Tasmat asampradayo vid sarva shastra vid api murkhavat eva upakshiniyaha. That's a very strong comment. He says that even if somebody is well versed, a scholar, but does not belong to a lineage, should be treated like a fool. That is, he does not or she does not know anything if they don't belong to a parampara. So these are the two spiritual insights we get from Acharya Shankara. One is, even if one is a scholar, one should not seek this Brahma Jnana, this self-knowledge independently. Secondly, a teacher, even if the teacher is a scholar but does not belong to a living tradition, then that teacher should not be given much credence. Sri Ramakrishna also says this in his simple language. He says, if one wants to know how to check the pulse, and from checking the pulse, telling the health, one has to go around with a physician several times. That is, one has to do internship. No matter how much one has studied, until they have done internship, one won't be able to really tell the differences, the nuances. So that is the need of teacher, and Shankaracharya makes it explicit for us. Makes it explicit for us this need for teacher. Then, having been instructed by the teacher what the seeker should do, that brings us to the second topic, the second need that Acharya Shankara places before us. What is that? Need for spiritual disciplines. In Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, fourth part of the Upanishad, fourth chapter, mantra number 21, there comes a mantra. Tamevo dhiro Viggaya Pragyam Kurbito Brahmanaha. So after knowing that, one should do pragya, that is, do knowledge. So this is something intriguing. Kurbita pragya. How one can do? Kurbita has come from the word kri, that is to do. One has to do knowledge. So what does this really mean? What does doing knowledge really mean? From this mantra, as it says, one should do knowledge. What is this? One should do knowledge. Acharya Shankara, in his commentary, uh, makes it clear. He says, Kurbita means pragya karano sadhanani, sannyasa, shama, dama, uparati, titiksha, samadhanani, kuryat, iti arthaha. That is, do knowledge means practice the means of the knowledge. Practice the means for this knowledge. And what are the means? Letting go of the non-essentials, calmness of mind, controlling our sense organs, motor organs, etc., withdrawal of the senses, fortitude, and concentration of mind. So, Shankara, Acharya Shankara, whenever he gets an opportunity, he brings about the need to practice these disciplines. Mostly he says about Shama, Dama, Uparati. Shama means calmness of mind, Dama means controlling the sense organs, and Uparati means withdrawal of the mind from external pursuits, external engagement, and trying to go within. This point, that the need of spiritual discipline is of so much importance, he makes it more clear in his commentary on Taittiriya Upanishad. In Taittiriya Upanishad, 3rd chapter called Bhrigu Valli, we find that Bhrigu, a young boy, goes to his father, Varuna, and wants to know about the subtlest of the subtlest Brahman, who wants to get instructed about Brahman. And we know the famous verse, Bhigur Bhai Varunihi Varunam Pitaram Upasasada Adhihi Bhagavo Brahmeti Tasma Etat Provacha Annam Pranam Chakshu Srotram Mano Bachamiti Tamho Bacho Yato Va Imani Bhutani Jayante Yena Jatani Jivanti Yat Prayanti Abhisambhishanti Tad Vijigyasasva Tat Brahmeti Satapotapyata Satapyastaptya. So, Varuna gives some hint how to know about Brahman and instructs his son to do austerity or tapas, that is, do some spiritual practice. Bhrigu earnestly goes through his spiritual practices and reports again and again to his father, but every time his father sends him back with the same crisp command. What is that command? Do tapas, that is, do spiritual discipline. Finally, Bhrigu realizes Brahman, which is the subtlest, innermost essence, and which is of the nature of supreme bliss. Then Acharya Shankara expresses the practical significance of this episode and the context in one short, profound sentence. What is that? Since every time Bhrigu comes back falling short of the right answer, and every time his father sends him back and say, do tapas, do spiritual practice. So Acharya Shankara says that the real purport or purpose of the entire story, entire episode of this topic is anyone desirous of knowing the ultimate truth should undertake the concentration of mind and external organs, that is Shamo and Dama, which is the most excellent practice of tapas, which is the most important practice of tapas or spiritual discipline. He says, Tasmat Brahma Bijiggasuna Bahya Antah Karna Samadhana Lakshanaham Paramam Tapaha Sadhanam Anushteyam iti prakaranarthaha. The real meaning, real significance of this chapter of the Upanishad or this episode of the Upanishad is that anyone who wants to know about their true nature should do these two spiritual practices. Bahya antakarana samadhana lakshanam param, that is calmness of mind and control of the sense organs. This is what we see in Acharya Shankara. Whenever he finds an opportunity, he stresses, emphasizes the need of spiritual practices. We know that in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asks Sri Krishna the characteristics of a Sthita Pragya. What are the characteristics of a person of steady wisdom? And then Sri Krishna speaks about that these are the qualifications, these are the qualities, characteristics of a person of steady wisdom. There, Acharya Shankara makes a very important comment. He says that those characteristics which are natural for a illumined person, those same characteristics or qualities are practice for a spiritual seeker. Those same things, dukkheshu anudigno manaha, sukheshu vigatas priyaha, prajahati yada kaman, being desireless, remaining unperturbed in sorrow, not being too much elated in happiness, and so on and so forth, which are natural for a person of steady wisdom, which are natural to an illumined person, are themselves the practice for a spiritual seeker. Sarvatra eva adhyatma shastre kritartha lakshanani yani tani eva sadhanani upadishyante. So this has also become very popular. This draws our attention to the fact that all the qualities that we hear about a true devotee, a person of steady wisdom, or a person who has gone beyond all the three gunas, these characteristics are natural to them, and these are practices for us, for the spiritual seekers. So Acharya Shankara wants to make it clear for us that number one need in spiritual life is need of a teacher. Number two, one needs to do spiritual practices, and spiritual practices consist of control of the external sense organs and calmness of mind. Third need that Shankaracharya brings before us or puts before us, the need for alertness, need for ever alertness. Unfortunately, there are many obstacles in the path of spiritual realization. They are like speed breakers. And Upanishads and the Gita warn the spiritual aspirants about these pitfalls or obstacles. And what has been mentioned in just a word or phrase is sometimes elaborately explained by Acharya Shankara out of compassion for the struggling souls. For example, Upanishads say that the Brahman should be reached by an unerring person or by one with an undistracted mind, one who is ever alert. We see it in Mundaka Upanishad. Pranava dhanuhu sharohi atma brahma tat lakshanam uchyate apramatena vedhavyam sharavat tanmayo bhavet. So, your atma, your own self, is like the bow. Omkara is like the arrow, and the goal is Brahman. And one who is ever alert, they reach the goal, they hit the target. So here one word is important, apramattena. Pramatta means to fault or to make the mistake. Apramattena means one who does not do that mistake, one who is unerring. So what does this really mean, not doing the mistake? Acharya Shankara explains the word apramattena with his spiritual insights. He says that by one who is ever alert, who is free from the error of sensual enjoyments, who is detached, who has control over their senses and has concentration of mind. Apramattena बाह्य विषय उपलब्धि तृष्णा प्रमाद वर्जितेन सर्वतो विरक्तेन जितेन्द्रियेण एकाग्रचित्तेन वेद्धव्यम ब्रह्म लक्ष्यम. So the error, according to him, is the desire for sensual enjoyment, which distracts the spiritual seeker and derails them. And this obstacle, namely the desire for sensual enjoyment, is part of a chain reaction that we see in Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, in two verses, verse number 62 and 63. Bhagavad Gita tells us the entire chain reaction, that first a person dwells upon objects, and from that attachment grows, liking grows for that object. From that, hankering of the object arises in mind. And if we cannot get that object, that frustration expresses as anger. From anger, the anger deludes us. From anger, we become deluded. And then, from that occurs loss of memory. And from loss of memory, we perish. A person perishes. Dhyayoto vishayan pumsaha shangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho vijayate क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोह सम्मोहात् स्मृति विभ्रमः स्मृति भ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाश बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति. Now, in that psychologically workout chain, smriti bhramsha, smriti vibhramaha, that is loss of memory, comes towards the end. Loss of memory, which is the ultimate cause of ruin of the seeker. Now the question is, what is this loss of memory? What is this memory? And what does this loss mean? Again we get a insight, a great spiritual insight from Acharya Shankara. He makes a revealing remark here. He says that the loss is of memory, which is created by impressions of the teachings of the teacher and of scripture. And loss means when the occasion arises for the manifestation of the memory, it fails to manifest. That is, whatever wisdom we have gained from our teacher, from the scriptures, we lose them. Those memories, those teachings, those wisdoms forget or fail to manifest when they are needed most. When we need them most, they don't come to our help. That is the meaning of loss of memory. He says, Shastra Acharya Upadesha Hita Samskara Janitayaha Smite Syat Vibhrama Bhramshaha. And Tataha Smiti Bhramshat Buddhinashaha. That is, from that we lose the power of discerning. That is what we should do and what we should not do. So, Shankara, in his explanation of the term loss of memory, flashes a warning sign to keep the memory of the teachings of the Upanishads, of the Gita and other scriptures, and the memory of the teachings that we received from our teacher. We need to keep those teachings always awake within. This is Shankaracharya's warning sign, warning to all the spiritual seeker that keep these teachings ever awake within. Then they will manifest at the time of when we need them most. So these are the three spiritual insights that we can glean from Acharya Shankara's commentaries on Upanishad and Gita. The three spiritual insights are a spiritual seeker need a teacher. A needed teacher, one should not try to seek Brahma Vidya independently. Secondly, what should be the qualification of the teacher? What background check we should do about the teacher? That the teacher should belong to a living tradition. Second spiritual insight, Acharya Shankara's, is need of spiritual discipline. So, we always should be engaged in Shama, Dama, Uparati, that is calmness of mind, control of the senses, and curtailing our extrovertness, curtailing our unnecessary engagement with the external world and try to dive within. And third is, in this spiritual journey, we need to remain alert. We need to keep the teachings always bright before us, always glowing before us, so that they always show us the path and do not let us derail. So these spiritual insights are only snippets or only a few among so many spiritual insights Acharya Shankara gives us through his commentaries on Upanishads and Gita. Students of Vedanta must learn to receive from Acharya Shankara the spiritual heritage of Vedanta as much as the metaphysical heritage of Vedanta, because in Vedanta realization and metaphysics are not divorced from each other. They are inseparable. And in Acharya Shankara, these two aspects, the brilliance of metaphysics and brilliance of spiritual insights born of spiritual illumination, are beautifully blended, as it should happen in all philosopher sage. So, this is what we get from Acharya Shankara, and we are ever grateful to Acharya for showing us, the spiritual seekers, the right path, right wisdom in the path of spirituality. Let me conclude by offering our pranam to Acharya. सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. Our salutations to the Guru-disciple lineage, starting with Lord Sadashiva through the medium of Adi Shankaracharya and continuing to my immediate teacher.